Hey, my loves, long time no talk. So, today I wanted to talk about how you need to free yourself from your own mental prison. So, let's get into it. So, I first wanted to bring up the reason why I wanted to discuss this. Well, honestly, I don't really have a definitive reason for it. I just love to speak my mind and give my hot take on things. But something that I recently thought about a lot is how me as an individual, I love to be a bit like, what's the word? I do like to pride myself in being quirky, eccentric, individualistic, and whatnot. But I am starting to learn how listening to your intuition is to know that you are a part of a larger whole rather than being ego based and being like, well, no, like this only happens to me. I'm different from everyone and I only have original experiences. But the beautiful part about following your intuition is that you radiate this unconditionally loving energy and establish this ability to connect with everyone regardless of their differences from you. But also, something that I notice is how by being too individualistic and priding ourselves in our own little niche interests and whatnot can also tend to make us think that we are only limited to who we think we are at the time of whatever situation. So, for example, if I'm like, yeah, I am a procrastinator, that's just who I am, so I don't really get things done on time or ahead of time. That is only serving me, that's only doing myself a disservice by me limiting myself to being a procrastinator and labeling myself as someone who isn't capable of getting things in a timely fashion. So whenever I hear people say things like, "Oh yeah, like, I'm just, I don't, I just am not a confrontational person, I don't feel the need to really speak my mind on things, like it's fine." It may be fine, but is it ideal? Probably not, because I feel like whenever I talk to people, there are, like just as humans, I've been in that place as well, but like I notice that people just always have something to either complain or talk about, like that aren't going their way, right? But 99.9% of the time, it's something that you can control. So we are we house so much potential and power to create our own reality. So if you just limit yourself into thinking, well, like that's just a situation and I'm going to accept it, that's you just accepting fate. So this is kind of a video that I wanted to cover as well, like the difference between fate and destiny. I read that fate is the calling of the ego, whatever you are born into, not your chosen life. You can't choose to be one gender or one race when you come into this world, or who your family is. That's your fate. However, your destiny is the calling of your soul. So whenever you decide to trailblaze a new path for yourself, that's whenever you are following your destiny. So whenever, like, let me just open this nicotine gum because I'm choosing my destiny by quitting nicotine. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this because I feel like it just kind of frustrates me whenever people want to limit themselves so much. And like, yes, for people like in my life, my loved ones, of course, like I want to be there for you, and as a mediator type INFP, I love to give my impartial opinion on things and be able to like provide some sort of comfort, guidance to people who need it. Like, of course. But there's just so much I can do whenever you're not doing things for yourself. And I find it really frustrating because yes, there is like an excessive and deficient amount of things. So like sometimes I find myself not wanting to ask for help or like advice. So I find it brave of people to come forward to be like, hey, like, give me your advice on things. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I think it's definitely very beneficial to ask for help and seek support. But if it's a repetitive theme, a repetitive obstacle that you're like always talking about, like for example, like, ugh, they're so annoying. Like, oh my gosh, I hate how this person is this way. And like, it just makes me mad how they can't be like honest with their feelings or they're just fake. So, I, I love to hear tea, I love to hear drama, and me as well. Like, I could be a bit of like a gossiper at times, but I've strayed away from that more so like after high school because I realize it's a very low vibrational activity to invest in. But like, just we're human. Okay, I'm only human. It can be very fun, especially when someone's telling me, like, catching me up on the tea. Like, I'm not gonna be like, don't tell me. I'll listen. But I'm also the type to just be upfront about the situation after listening, and if I feel that person who's confiding in me is in the wrong, I will let them know. Because I don't just want to be a listening ear. I think that's a bit useless. I think if you are, seeking support or guidance from me, I want to be able to provide you some sort of knowledge, wisdom, a second opinion. And I pride myself in being like as impartial as I can be. Like, I try my best to be very impartial, non-biased when, especially in situations like this where I'm just kind of like the outsider looking in. But it just frustrates me that I feel a lot of people, like, especially like in my generation of people, you know what? I think this is just applicable to a majority of the population of people, that they'll sit and complain about something that they have infinite free will to change. They just want someone to sugarcoat or to affirm them in their choice to not do anything about it. Like I said, if you are dealing with a toxic relationship, toxic friendship, for me, like, yes, I did struggle with it as well about like, oh, like this sucks, but like still continuing to be their friend or whatever, right? But we live and we learn. This is why I want to share this with you is, what is the point of complaining about something if you are not taking any steps to change it? What is the point? And this is why I don't really like to title my topics too specifically, because I go off on tangents. But going back to how I want to discuss how we tend to limit ourselves to something because we identify as something. So I think identity is important, and as someone who has experienced many identity crises in my 22 years on this earth, I have realized that it's much more beneficial to just accept like who you are at the time, like as time like whatever, we evolve. And if you continually just tell yourself, like, I'm just not a confrontational person, I'm just not really a social person, like, I'm just, I don't make a lot of friends, you're manifesting that for yourself. You are limiting yourself and your potential by just labeling yourself as something. And I think that's something that I really like find very incredible about myself, is that I'm constantly evolving and constantly, like, going with the ebbs and flows of life and without limiting myself. So if I feel like today I wanna be a little mysterious. I'm a mysterious girl that day, and one day, if I feel very social butterfly-esque, I'm a social butterfly. That's why I don't like when people label me, especially, and their selves, because I'm like, you're not gonna be the same person you came into this earth as. You just make it that way. So if I came into this world as a shy person, an introvert, and I accept that I'm always going to be an introvert. And like I feel a lot of people who meet me, they know like one side of me that I like connect with them as. So for example, if I meet an extroverted friend, I might come off as introverted to them, right? And they might not see that side of me where I am very extroverted towards my introverted friends. But to limit me as a friend by saying, yeah, like Irene's like introverted, I find that very frustrating and misinformational because, yeah, like maybe you haven't seen that side of me, but I continuously try and like put out different versions of myself every day because I'm being authentic to the energy I'm vibrating at the time and place of whatever. But one thing I can always count on is my authenticity, my truth. I will never pretend to be someone I'm not. So I feel like maybe some people might perceive me as like a shapeshifter or like I don't even know how to describe her because she's very this and that sometimes. But also like I don't really care what you think. If I feel like a hermit for a week, I'm going to be a hermit. I'm not gonna force myself to drain my social battery if at that phase in my life I need more alone time, solitude, introspecting. And I feel like when people limit themselves to their one identity is whenever they cannot enjoy their life, they can't enjoy the people in their life, their environment, because you can't branch out. And let's use this another example. I love to use examples. But let's say Rebecca. Rebecca is, she is a very nice girl, very introverted, friendly, sweet. But that's just Rebecca, and Rebecca knows that about herself that she's a really nice girl. She doesn't really speak up much. She's go with the flow. Everyone loves Rebecca because how can you hate her? She's just so easygoing. But let's say Rebecca has some problems with her friend Sarah. And Sarah is much more extroverted in nature and more blunt, more straightforward, and people value Sarah because of this bold personality Sarah has, but also Sarah can tend to be a bit gossipy, a bit sly, and Rebecca doesn't really like that because Rebecca's like, I love Sarah, she's my best friend, but like I just don't like how Sarah always puts me down in front of other people, or she gets so much more attention than I do, and like she's just more out there than I am, and I feel I can't trust her at times. Well, Rebecca, sorry to break it to you, girl, but this is no one's fault but yours. And I can relate to Rebecca because I've always been someone who, not always, we're learning a lesson here. I've been someone for a long time who was afraid of making friends, and I would think that like something was wrong with me because friends wouldn't stick, and I would feel like I was excluded a lot, and people just had like unspoken malice and hostility towards me. and my energy, but I've learned to realize that that's a reflection of themselves. But Sarah here, she's being true to herself, right? Or who knows? But Rebecca, you just you can't hate the player, hate the game, because I think I've realized this like now that before I would kind of look at other people who are known as like a foxy type. It's a Korean phrase. It's like being a yo means you're gonna just you'll do anything to get your way. And maybe people might perceive you as someone who is dishonest, like um hard to trust, but you are a very successful person. And of course, people who are like good in nature will look at this foxy person and be like, dang, they're too sly for me. They're too cunning. Like, I feel I can't trust this person. Well, okay, that's okay. But you also can't blame that person for knowing exactly what to do to get what they want. And yeah, you might think that they're like evil or have negative intentions and they're toxic, whatnot. But focus on yourself. Because if Rebecca is having problems with Sarah's character, why stay friends with her? Why accept that kind of energy that doesn't clearly um, match or align with yours? Like, you have to be honest with yourself, Rebecca. You either have to step up, play the game as Sarah is, or drop Sarah. Like, there's two choices you have. Actually, three, I guess, because one choice is to just stay comfortable in where you're at and remain friends with Sarah, even though, like, you always complain about Sarah and you don't like how Sarah is. Well, one choice that you do not have is to change other people or control them. And if you allow yourself to remain uncomfortable in her presence, you just gave all of your free will to this person without even Sarah asking for it. So, like, before I would be like, dang, like, these people suck. They don't want to be my friend. Like, they're, like, bad, whatever. But now that I've grown older, I realize that I'm not for everyone. Because if I'm being honest with myself, the reason why I feel I didn't have a lot of friends is because without it being said, I do give off someone who is very like particular. I have I have too high of standards with certain things, and if they're not met, then I can't kick it with you because I'm someone who's like very back and forth. Like, I go all dependent on my own energy. Like I said, if I feel like I need to be a hermit today, I'll be a hermit. But some friendships, I feel they have this like codependent energy where they're like, well, if my friend invited me out and I don't feel like it, like, I still don't know if I should say no, because if I say no, then they're not going to invite me out or they're going to take it personally. Why is that your business? Why is that any of your business? Like, if you feel you don't want to go out, don't go out, because you're only doing yourself a disservice by going out knowing you want to stay in, and you just are giving your own worth to this person by saying, yeah, like, I'm okay with like being uncomfortable, like, even though I don't want to be out, like, I want to appeal to Sarah, like, she wants to go out and you're not enjoying your time out. Why did you go out? And now I kind of want to share like a personal life experience that's like a perfect example of how you can free yourself from the restraints that you put yourself in, the shackles of labels and identification of self. So, like I said, I thought I was always someone who was very codependent on other people, cared about what other people had to say, and felt very like wronged for people not accepting who I was and like how unique I was or I am. Once I got out of high school and went into college is when I realized at my very core, I am a very free spirited and independent woman. This is because as a commuter, I didn't have many friends right when I got into college. Whereas in elementary through high school, like you're kind of in this little bubble where people do have these groups. They have certain friends. Like, I'm not gonna say I didn't have any friends. I definitely did, but I also tolerated a lot of people because there wasn't like this freedom I felt to branch out. But in college, I was forced to, right? Because I had to accept that I didn't have any friends going into college, and I had to embrace this lone wolf energy. And in that lone wolf energy is when I realized this is so freeing and this is so me. And I realized like I may have a bit of a performance anxiety. So like when people are around me and like watching me perform, such as like going up to someone and being like, "Hey, like I find you cool, like want to be friends." Just the basic fact alone that someone's watching me do that is what kind of makes me feel very like limited. And me embracing this lone wolf energy is when I realized like I'm such a confident and extroverted person. I just confined myself to being an introvert because I didn't realize the difference between choosing to be an introvert and just being an introvert. And I think I've always been one to just choose introversion over extroversion. I like my own time. I like my alone time, my, like recharging hermit phases a lot. I value it. And I feel like when you're extroverted at your core, you you know, you're capable of taking on a lot of energies and you thrive in that, which I find that, admirable, but that's not me. Um so like things I would do on my journey of like rediscovering myself, I would never raise my hand in class. So through elementary through high school, I would never raise my hand. I don't think I've raised my hand one time. I don't know, but I don't think I have. But like I said, because I was embracing this moment of like me being alone, me navigating college alone and like finding myself, I realized that like I'm very capable of like trying new things that are outside of my comfort zone. So in classes and lectures, I will raise my hand. Hi. I don't just raise my hand. Did I shave my armpit? Yeah, I did. I'll do this. And if I see the professor being like calling on someone else and they're like, I got you. I'm like, okay, put it down. Do not shy away. So, this is what I realize when you're self aware, your intentions come before your action. So, when I know this answer and I want to answer it, then I say, all right, I will raise my hand. So, I'm going to raise my hand up high. I don't half ass things. So, when I see people like, they'll be like, and then they'll call on someone else and they're like, oh, okay, like, it's hard to watch because I know exactly like how that person feels because I've been in their shoes exactly. But I think like it makes me frustrated because I feel like a lot of people don't choose to like go on the journey of discovering themselves and like learning how to better themselves to become more empowered, like cuz everyone's journey is different, everyone's time is different, like time is relative. So it doesn't matter how old you are, if you're still shy, whatever, like you still have time to like work through it. And if you don't want to, you don't have to. But it's just like I feel frustrated for people who really limit themselves because I see so much potential for everyone. And so whenever, I see like the little thing, like I'm like, if you know the answer, raise your hand up high and do not be apologetic about it. Like if someone gets called on before you, be like, all right, that's cool, but I'm gonna raise my hand again. If the professor doesn't see me, do it so that they see you. Because I think like also I've been watching a lot of Strawberry Park, if you know them on YouTube. Tag them. Um but, like, they react to cut videos, Jubilee videos, and, like, the ranking ones, I'm sure y'all have seen it, and, like, people will, like, sometimes go at the very end. So, for example, if it's a who's most attractive one, like, the more insecure individual, the more shy, like, quiet one will, like, be like, "Alright, like, I'll go to the end," and, like, not even peep, like, not make one peep, and they'll just go to the end. And I'm like, why did you sign up for this if all you're gonna do is expose yourself for being very, like, having low self-esteem? And you know what? Like, you can own it for having low self-esteem. That could be an admirable, you owning that you have low self-esteem. I don't know, like, at least own it, you know? But it's just like, you have to carry yourself, like, no one is going to acknowledge that you need help unless you ask for it. So, like, you not even advocating for yourself is what makes me a little frustrated. It's like when I think there was this one video where it was like the who's the most attractive or who has the best style, and there was this really like sweet girl, and she didn't say anything. And when the director was asking her like, why did you go to the end, she's like, oh, it's because like I found like all the other women like just so beautiful, like, and I don't think I could compare. And I'm like, yeah, you remain in the end, because I'm sorry, but who's gonna advocate for you besides yourself? And you are such a cute girl, but once you said that, I found you a bit less attractive, because I am not a superficial person. Yes, I guess looks do matter, because while watching Strawberry Park, I realized like the reality is most people do care about looks. That's the reality. For me, I feel people would say I have low standards because I give a lot of people chances who may not be conventionally attractive, but I'm very attracted to their energy and I feel comfortable with them. So, you know, I'm being real about it, but I think it's all energy. I truly believe it's all energy. Let's say an unconventionally attractive man, so going by standards of conventions, short, um short, what's the word? Out of shape. Yeah. Let's just use these two examples. And this guy, he comes into the room, and although he might not be the most conventionally attractive guy, has so much immense confidence and radiates this like assertive energy. Who wouldn't be attracted to that? Whereas if this conventionally attractive looking man, tall, in shape, but has no self-worth, has no confidence, has no like sense of self-worth, just coming into this room like shoulders down, like um no, not straightening their back, hunched over, like trying to like make themselves smaller, it's so unattractive. And I think it all has to do with advocating for yourself. Like, just knowing that no one will do it for you, so you have to be your own hero. Like, no one's gonna see in that video and cut, it was like she made herself so small that none of the women acknowledged how small she was making herself. Like, for example, if a fellow empath was in the room, I'm sure they'll notice and be like, hey, like, come here, like, you're not, you know, like, I find you very attractive, I think you should be ranked here. But she made herself so small that like she accepted her fate in being so vulnerable and insecure that like all the other women were advocating for themselves. They obviously don't have responsibility to have to like advocate for this girl when she can't even stand up for herself. And that's why I feel like that's where the bystander effect applies. When someone is getting bullied and like no one's actively like coming up to help, it's like because you think like, oh, someone will help, or and it seems selfish, right? But in a situation where that person can help themselves but doesn't, it's like, most people can't help but be selfish, because you look at this person and you're like, if I can do it for myself, why can't you? And yes, it's good to have compassion for others, and like, I think I've had too much compassion and too much empathy for others that it was a detriment to me. And this is why I feel like now I'm kind of trying to balance this excessive people pleasing thing to moderate by understanding that, like, I don't care if people label me as selfish, because this is my life and I don't have to, what's the word? I feel this video is really long, but y'all already know how I am. I just love to rant and ramble, and I know a lot of people out there value my opinions, and if you don't, I don't really care. And you're still watching at this point, so it's just empowering to just speak your mind, because there are always going to be people who hate or like just dislike you for no reason. Like, you could be the most perfect looking individual, have the sweetest heart, and do no wrong, and people will still dislike you for just being perfect. So don't limit yourself, is what I'm trying to get at. Is like, if you come from a place of people pleasing, limiting yourself and being like, well, like, no, I don't want to, like, I don't want to be on anyone's bad side, so I'm just gonna stay quiet or not advocate for myself. So you're living, first of all, you're not living your own life. You're living the life of what you assume that others want or expect you to live. And how restricting is that? You are oppressing yourself. And segueing to oppression, that is a facade. Oppression is a facade. Yes, of course, there are like instances of real discrimination, racism, oppression, but whenever you label yourself as being oppressed and allowing your experiences such as racism, discrimination hinder who you are and your growth, is whenever you've just given up on yourself. And I mean, look at me. I'm a woman, I'm Asian, so I fit under two minority groups already, yet I don't let that define who I am. Like, yeah, I will continually experience misogyny, microaggressions, racism, but that doesn't apply to me. Like, I will see it, I will experience it, but it's more of me looking at this person and saying, you're just ignorant. But the truth of the matter is, I'm not going to let that define me and oppress me and also hinder my goals for myself. Like, I'm not going to let that just limit me to my full potential, you know? Like, there are many successful women out there, there are many successful minority individuals out there. And so whenever I feel like people who oppress themselves, I'm like, what good does that bring you besides humiliation? Is that empowering to feel humiliating or humiliated? And by saying, oh, like, I'm just smaller, like, I'm just smaller, so I'm more entitled to, like, being empathized with, and people just understanding that, like, I just don't have a lot, like, I already have so much setbacks, so just, like, understand that. Is that not embarrassing? And so whenever I see, like, also, for example, like, men, because I watch, like, I've been talking about the Strawberry Park a lot, but like, I love them, but also I feel they're very like superficial, and they obviously advocate for like men and like societally male ideals. So I get it. Like, they'll assume that women are generally very like superficial, only care about money, and if a guy is not tall, this and that, like, why would she give you the time of day? But also, it's like, if you generalize people, you're only like making this infinite potential limited for yourself. if you only generalize women to be that way, then you will never find a authentic woman, because you are afraid of opening up, because you just already assume that this woman does not want you and only wants you for your wallet, and thinks that you're just no one because you're not tall. Like, why are you oppressing yourself? Even if that is the reality, why don't you want to change that for yourself? And that's what frustrates me, is whenever people just accept things for face value instead of looking beyond that. Like, why are you confining yourself into a box? And that's one thing about me that I can always pride myself in, is I will never fit in a box. And love my favorite one of my favorite songs by Nicki Minaj and Rihanna, Fly. There is this one line that's like, everybody try to box me in, suffocating every time they lock me in. Something like, dang, I forgot. I wrote it down, I think. But Nicki Minaj, I stand by her. I don't care. Y'all are too picky and choosy. I knew that this canceled thing was already gonna, being canceled isn't real either. So that's why I'm saying, like, don't confine yourself to like what people think. Like, there are people who will get canceled and just bounce back, yet there's also people who get canceled and don't even show their face ever again because they're just so ashamed and afraid of what people think. Well, overall, what I wanted to conclude with is just by saying that find power in your pain. Use your pain and convert that to power. Do not find being limited as any source of power for yourself. Oppressing yourself is not powerful, okay? You being unwilling to accept that people confine you in a box should enrage you. You should want to prove that that is not your reality, and that is what's truly empowering. You don't see success stories of people being confined in a box. These entrepreneurs, these freelancers, these people who make it like out of the crappiest situations don't allow for people to confine them by saying, oh, like, you're just so small and weak and you just had so much setbacks in life. Like, people who get the shitty end of the stick and accept it. Do you hear any success stories of that nature? No, because people who get offered that shitty end of the stick, but they're like, you know what though? I can't see this for myself. Even though this is what I'm born into and this is my fate, I'm a trailblazer. I'm not gonna accept this. And I'm not gonna accept the same life that I know I don't deserve. So that is why you should find power through coming out of this box. This box in 2 dimensions. Wait, no. 1-dimensional, 2-dimensional. Yes, this 1-dimensional box drawn on this piece of paper may look like there's no way to escape, right? If you draw a box on a piece of paper, I know, I'm a visual person as well. Let me show you what I mean. If you want to correct me and say this is not 1-dimensional, go ahead. Okay, this box, 1-dimensional, looks like if you're here inside this box, it might at first look like you can't escape because you're caged in. But the reality is this is only 1-dimensional. Who's to say that this doesn't have an opening at the top? You're just accepting that you're in this box. But guess what? This box could be like this, and you don't even know because you don't want to change your perspective. This box could actually be 2-dimensional, and there's this opening right here. And you're like, well, like, I'm already in this box, like, I can't get out, so I'm just gonna stay in this box with everyone else because I'm comfortable. And that is what differentiates people who are successful and high value versus people who are not. It's the hard truth, everyone. And I know this video was very long, boo-hoo, but I know this was very I mean, I hope it was valuable for people out there who just needed to hear this, like, who needed to hear that you have so much potential and do not limit yourself, okay? So, yeah, love to talk with y'all and ramble. Goddess of Peace is out. Bye.